Chapter 6. Protein Foods for Health. Protein forms the most important part of every living organism. It is also the essential nitrogenous constituent in all the foods we eat. Protein is exceedingly complex in its structure and functions, and many of its reactions are still very mysterious. But this need not trouble you. In planning for your family, always be sure to have sufficient proteins in your diet. These are basic good nutrition. Why is the body so dependent on protein? For the answer, let us examine the body mechanism and how it functions. Vast family of cells. The human body is more or less like a vast family of cells, all with their own special work to do. Some cells are bundled together in the form of powerful muscles. Others are hard at work in the nervous system, busy flashing messages here and there as needed by the body. Still others have the job of holding us together, and providing stability through our bones, joints and sinews. On the surface of the brain we have certain cells that enable us to think and plan for the future. Everything we do, every reaction taking place within us is carried out by one type of cell or another. This is life. Just like the members of any good household, all these cells must be fed and cared for. How is this done? Through the things we eat and drink, and in how we care for ourselves. Eating and drinking, bathing and resting, all are vitally important to health. Living cells are different. Now, if you touch a piece of metal on a cool day, it feels cold and hard, but the skin of your face feels soft and warm. Why? Because that skin is pulsating with life. The metal is cold and lifeless. That soft warm skin is composed of living cells, untold myriads of them, each with its special function to perform. The growth of cells. 43. What has all this to do with food? A great deal. Each cell in your body is dependent upon you to keep alive. What you eat makes all the difference between life and death. From the foods you eat, each cell, whether in bone, muscle, nerve, or skin, builds up its own particular type of protoplasm. This is the living, jelly-like material of which all cells are composed. Protoplasm is the basic material of which all living things, whether plant or animal, are made. And this protoplasm is built up from the proteins within our diet. But this is not all. Protoplasm possesses within itself the remarkable powers of movement, reproduction, and growth. A baby grows from one single cell, the fertilized ovum, which is almost too small to be seen by the unaided eye. Yet, that single cell will multiply itself into enormous numbers of other cells of many different types, and together they make up the human body. The living cells draw nutriment from the fluids that flow all around them, fluids that are kept in constant motion by the heart. During the growing period, each cell enlarges to about double its normal size, then abruptly divides into two daughter cells, each equal in size to the original before the division began to take place. Thus the original living protoplasm has now doubled in size, and this carries on indefinitely as long as the individual continues to grow. When he is fully mature, this process of growth and division suddenly ceases, and is not resumed except for the repair or replacing of cells worn out through injury or damaged by disease. Why proteins are important? Need we ask why proteins are so important in the diet? It is from proteins that the living protoplasm within the cells is built. This wonderful living material is constantly absorbing and expending energy. Part of this energy is needed for the growth of the cell itself. The rest is expended on the work the cell does. And the heat it produces. That what keeps us warm and alive. And as long as we are alive and in good health, those cells of ours will maintain more or less the same temperature, regardless of the weather. To do this they must have an adequate supply of proteins and carbohydrates. Protein materials are built up first of all in plants and trees. Tiny factories in the leaves and roots are constantly at work, changing the simple chemicals of nature into more complex substances, such as proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, ready for use in the human. 44 Protein foods for health. Body. Carbohydrates and fats provide energy for all the cells of the body, while proteins are needed for growth and repair of cells. Proteins are by far the most complex group of substances known to science today. Fortunately, we don't have to understand all about the chemistry of foods and cells before we eat our meals. We can leave that to the scientists, with all their ultramicroscopes and delicate equipment. The important thing is to be sure we have sufficient proteins in our own diet, for they are the food substances that build a strong, healthy body. Proteins are needed continually to repair worn-out tissues. They are essential for building strong bones and muscles in growing children, and are needed all through life. We cannot stay well unless we always have an adequate supply of protein in our diet. Amino acids. Proteins are very complex substances, and there are endless varieties of them. Each type of protein contains a certain number of building blocks, or amino acids, always arranged in certain sequences according to the type of protein. The more highly complex proteins have many more of these amino acids or building blocks. The arrangement of these amino acids is always important. Just the change of one or two tiny atoms in the protein molecules may produce an entirely different substance. Some proteins, such as albumin, or the white of an egg, are easily dissolved in water. Others, such as globulin, can only be dissolved in a dilute, salty solution. Both albumin and globulin are present in the bloodstream, along with many other forms of protein, all of which are continually necessary for life. All the proteins in the body are being continually changed and used up. This means they must be constantly renewed. This renewal requires a good supply of protein in the diet at all times. Before they can be absorbed by the body, all the proteins in our foods must first be broken down into amino acids. This takes place in the small bowel. From there these fragments of protein are carried to the liver by the bloodstream, where they are changed and stored ready for future use. Out in the tissues these fragments are finally recombined into the type of protein needed by each particular kind of cell. This vastly enlarged model of a single body cell illustrates how complicated living matter is. Good sources of protein. Proteins are found in almost all foods, but some contain far more than others. Richest sources of protein are whole grain cereals, peas, beans, lentils, peanuts, soybeans, milk, eggs, cheese, buttermilk, meat, and fish. For various reasons, many families prefer a vegetarian diet. Because most kinds of meat are rather expensive, other families may find them beyond their means. Fortunately, a wise combination of vegetables and cereals can supply all the protein a person actually needs. Milk and dairy products are among the best sources of protein. Generally speaking, they are easily digested and absorbed by the body. Milk contains a complete protein, and at the same time, provides calcium and phosphorus in just the right proportions for growing children and nursing mothers. But even with so good a food as milk, we must still add a word of caution. Milk is easily contaminated by disease-carrying germs, both during the milking process and also while being stored. Therefore, all milk should be boiled or pasteurized before use. Boiling for several minutes will quickly kill all harmful germs. Meat is high in protein, but contains certain waste materials which must be eliminated by the kidneys. This means extra work. 46 protein foods for health. For the body, as well as trouble for those whose kidneys have been damaged by disease. There are many good reasons to live on a non-meat diet. However, vegetarians should be sure to get enough protein from other sources such as ground nuts, peas, beans, pulses, Bengal gram, whole grain cereals and milk products. Also green leaves are a useful sources of protein. Their benefit is much greater than one would suppose from the percentage of protein they actually contain. The reason is that although the percentage is low, the biological value is high. The protein in green leaves enhances the value of a vegetarian diet considerably when such green leaves, raw or cooked, are included daily. Soybeans are valuable. One of the richest sources of protein is the soybean. This simple food contains a complete protein in itself. The soybean has been cultivated in China and Japan for centuries. Soybeans actually contain twice as much protein, ounce for ounce, as meat, and 4 times as much as eggs. Soybeans also contain a high-quality vegetable oil that has no cholesterol in it. Soybean oil contains lecithin, too, which is of value in controlling the level of cholesterol within the body. Soybeans are low in carbohydrates, so that diabetic patients can use them freely. Soybeans are highly alkaline, and in addition contain all the important vitamins. Sprouted soybeans are used in many parts of Asia. They are an excellent source of vitamin C. They are also rich in vitamins A and B complex. Babies who are allergic to cow's milk can usually take soybeans milk without any trouble. In some countries a number of foods are made from the soybean. These include baked beans, canned or frozen green beans, bean sprouts, soybean milk and cheese, vegetable shortening, margarine, and salad oil. Soybeans are also being used in ice cream and sweetmeats, soy breakfast foods, soy sauce, and soy flour. Different types of soybeans are being produced for these purposes. Modern nutritionists and food chemists are busy in many areas searching for new ways of using this important protein food. Without